Hello, everyone, and welcome to English Voyage Podcast. I'm very happy you're here today. A few weeks ago, I decided to learn something completely new. Not a language, just a random skill that looked interesting. And honestly, I thought it would be much easier than it actually was. For the first few days, everything felt exciting. I watched videos, took notes, and imagined how good I would become after a few weeks. You know that feeling, right? And after a while, things became more difficult. I started forgetting things I had already learned. Some concepts that seemed simple suddenly became confusing. And the strangest part was that even though I was spending time learning, it sometimes felt like I wasn't improving at all. That's when I caught myself asking a question that I've probably asked 100 times before. Am I learning the wrong way? The more I thought about it, the more interesting that question became. Should it feel easy? Should progress be fast? And perhaps the biggest question of all, what is the right way to learn? It sounds like a simple question. In fact, if you search online, you will find thousands of videos, articles, and courses promising to teach you the best learning method. Some people tell you to use special techniques. Some recommend complicated systems with colorful charts and detailed schedules. After a while, learning how to learn can start feeling harder than learning the actual subject. The funny thing is that most of us have been learning since the day we were born. We learned how to walk, how to speak, how to ride a bicycle, and how to use technology. Yet when it comes to learning something new as adults, we often feel confused. We wonder if there is a secret method that everyone else knows, but we somehow missed. We begin searching for the perfect system. But maybe the better question is not, what is the perfect way to learn? Maybe the better question is, what does learning actually look like in real life? One of the biggest misunderstandings about learning is the belief that learning should feel smooth and easy. Many people assume that if they are struggling, they must be doing something wrong. Imagine someone learning English. They forget words. They misunderstand conversations. They make grammar mistakes. After a few weeks, they become frustrated and think, maybe I'm not good at languages. But let's think about that for a moment. If learning only happened when things felt easy, then nobody would ever learn anything difficult. Struggle is not always a sign of failure. Very often, struggle is evidence that learning is happening. When your brain is challenged, it is building new connections. The process may feel uncomfortable, but discomfort and growth often travel together. Think about learning to ride a bicycle. Nobody expects to jump on a bike and ride perfectly on the first day. Falling is part of the process. In fact, if someone told you they learned to ride a bicycle without ever losing balance, you would probably be suspicious. Yet when learning a language, a skill, or a new subject, we sometimes expect perfection immediately. We make one mistake and suddenly act as if the world is ending. The bicycle gets patience. The learner does not. Another common mistake is confusing information with learning. Today, information is everywhere. We can watch videos, read articles, listen to podcasts, and take online courses whenever we want. This is wonderful, but it also creates a hidden problem. Consuming information can feel like learning even when no real learning has happened. Have you ever watched 10 videos about productivity and then done absolutely nothing productive afterward? If so, welcome to the club. Many of us have been there. The reason is simple. Learning is not just receiving information. Learning happens when information changes the way we think or act. Reading about swimming is not the same as swimming. Watching a cooking video is not the same as cooking. And listening to an English podcast is not exactly the same as speaking English. Information is the starting point. Practice is what transforms information into ability. This leads to something that many learners do not want to hear. The right way to learn usually involves repetition. Not the exciting kind. Not the kind that gets thousands of views online. Just simple repetition. Most people dream about dramatic breakthroughs. They want to wake up one morning and suddenly speak fluent English or master a new skill. Unfortunately, the brain prefers a less exciting approach. It likes repetition. It likes practice. It likes seeing the same ideas again and again until they become familiar. The good news is that repetition works. The bad news is that repetition works slowly. Another important part of learning is making mistakes. Many people spend enormous amounts of energy trying to avoid mistakes. They wait until they feel ready. They wait until they know enough. They wait until they feel confident. The problem is that confidence often comes after action, not before it. Imagine a person who wants to improve their speaking skills, but never speaks because they are afraid of making errors. They are trying to avoid mistakes, but they are also avoiding improvement. The very thing they fear is often the thing that would help them grow. Something else that surprises many learners is that forgetting is normal. In fact, forgetting is part of learning. This sounds strange at first. Why would forgetting help us learn? The answer is that every time we forget and then remember something again, the memory becomes stronger. That is why language learners often see the same word many times before it finally sticks. It is not because they are bad learners. It is because the brain learns through repeated exposure. So the next time you forget a word you studied last week, try not to panic. Your brain is not broken. It is simply being a brain. Perhaps the most important lesson about learning is that progress is usually invisible before it becomes visible. Imagine planting a seed in the ground. For days, nothing seems to happen. Then one day, a small green shoot appears. What people often forget is that the growth started long before they could see it. Learning works the same way. Many learners become discouraged because they do not see immediate results. They study for a few weeks and expect a dramatic transformation. When that transformation does not arrive, they lose motivation. What they do not realize is that much of the progress is happening beneath the surface. The brain is adapting. Skills are developing. Knowledge is connecting. The visible results often arrive later. This is why consistency matters more than intensity. A person who studies for 20 minutes every day will often make more progress than someone who studies for 5 hours once a month. Learning is less like a sprint and more like growing a garden. You cannot force a plant to grow faster by pouring an entire year's worth of water onto it in one afternoon. In fact, that would probably create a completely different problem. Small efforts repeated over time are surprisingly powerful. When we look at great musicians, athletes, writers, or language learners, it is tempting to focus on where they are now. We see the results and forget the process. We see the performance and forget the practice. Yet behind every impressive skill is usually a long period of ordinary effort. Day after day, they showed up. Day after day, they practiced. Most of those days were probably not exciting. But they kept going anyway. That may be the closest thing to a secret that learning has. So, what is the right way to learn? It is not about finding a perfect method. It is not about never making mistakes. It is not about learning faster than everyone else. The right way to learn is to stay curious, practice consistently, accept mistakes, and give yourself enough time to grow. Learning is not a performance. It is a process. And like most meaningful processes in life, it takes longer than we wish, but rewards us more than we expect. Before we finish today's episode, I want to leave you with one simple thought. If you are learning something difficult right now, do not judge yourself too quickly. Do not assume that struggle means failure. Do not assume that slow progress means no progress. Sometimes the person who succeeds is not the smartest person in the room. Sometimes it is simply the person who keeps learning long enough to see the results. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of English Voyage Podcast. Keep learning, keep growing, and most importantly, be patient with yourself. The journey may be longer than you expected, but every step is teaching you something valuable. Take care, and I'll see you in the next episode.